Hello and welcome back, Emily Jean, if you're new here, and today I'm doing a book tag. We're doing the Picture This book tag. So grab your coffee, tea, water, and let's get cozy. A big thank you to Bookworm Adventure Girl for tagging me in this tag. I so appreciate you because I've never heard of this tag and it is a super interesting one. We go through a series of prompts connected to picture books that are pretty well known, and you answer a question related to the book, and I'm so excited to go through it with you. If you want to check out her video or the original creator's video, I'll link that in the description box below. There are 6 questions, I think. 7, 8. There are 8 questions, so let's go through them. First question is based on Love You Forever, written by Robert Munsch and illustrated by Shelia McGraw. We have this book. It is so sweet. And the question is, name a book that you imagine you'll love forever. This is a really tough one, but I picked one that I think will stand the test of time. Every time I read it, I get a little bit more insight. I find it even more interesting the older that I get, and that's The Giver by Lois Lowry. Of course, I read this for required reading in school at some point, but I've continued to read it over the years and picked up other ones, and it's just a book that sticks with me, that makes me think about society and questions the way that we connect with the world and what things are we taking for granted, like all these types of questions. So The Giver by Lois Lowry is what I will answer for that one. If you didn't know there were other in the series, I would definitely check those out too because they are so good, especially the blue one, Seeking Blue, something like that. But I really enjoyed the rest of that as well. Okay, second prompt is based on Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Very Bad Day by Judith Viorst and illustrated by Ray Cruz. The prompt is, which books or comforting things do you turn to when you're having a bad day? Great question. I definitely turn to immersive books. Ones that are like a comfort, where the world is just going to pull you in. You feel supported, something like House in the Cerulean Sea or Under the Whispering Door, Prodigal Summer that I'm rereading, where there's this whole atmosphere that kind of pulls you in and you can feel like you're living there for a little while. I definitely turn to cuddles. I would cuddle my dog Bella, who passed a couple years ago. It still feels like it was just the other day. I cuddle my son. My husband is not as big into cuddles, but when I can, I'll give him some cuddles too, or just grab a stuffy or something. Sometimes I'll turn to like favorite shows that I've watched all the seasons before. The Finder is one of my favorites that I turn to. Right now I'm rewatching The Glades on Hulu, I think. Just like these detective shows for me, like fun, more upbeat detective shows are something that I just feel like comfy and cozy watching. Okay, number 3, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, which I always thought was the Hungry Caterpillar, but it's The Very Hungry Caterpillar. We have like 2 copies of this book right now. And the prompt is, which book series characters sparked your hunger for reading? And this has come up in other tags before, and I honestly can't remember what it was that sparked my love. I was like born with it. I have always loved reading, and I cannot remember a time when I didn't. There's pictures of me from a very young age, like picking up my mom's chapter books and reading those, and absolutely just devouring books, from picture books all the way through chapter books. I don't remember what first got me into it. I can remember a lot of things from like 12-year-old age that I was really into, or like 8 to 12. And I remember a lot of books that I would like wait in line for the sequels to be released, but I don't remember what first got me hooked. That's my honest answer. Okay, number 4, the picture book is Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss, and the prompt is, what's the most unusual book you've ever read? And I have to say, Ice by Anna Kavan. That is like a mind bender what are you reading? What's happening? Where are you? Is this a fever dream? Is this alternate realities? What is even happening? I do have to say, I read this for Read a Book Outside challenge. I forget what the name of the challenge actually was, but I'll link that in the description box below too. So I read this book while outside, but I don't think that impacted it. It was a weird, immersive for sure, interesting read, and I'd have to say it is the most unusual book I've ever read. I couldn't even really give you a good synopsis. There's a man. He's hunting for a woman, trying to save a woman. She comes and goes. Is she there? Nobody knows what's happening. This is Ice by Anna Kavan. Number 5, the book is Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. A classic, so good. And the prompt is, what is your favorite book featuring the natural world? You know, I'm thinking I really like this tag because I'm reading a lot of picture books with my son right now. So I can like think of these fond memories from when I was a kid reading them and now my son reading them, which is kind of cool. So anyways, what was my favorite book featuring the natural world? Lost on a Mountain in Maine by Dawn Fendler. Absolutely. This was one of my favorite books I read last year, or reread because I read it growing up. Dawn Fendler came to our elementary school, and the way that he's lost in the woods and describes the natural world and you being in the natural world, it's a nonfiction, but it reads like a fiction. It is just so good. I would definitely recommend it to anybody looking for like an adventure book. It's also appropriate to read with your kids, I would say. It's just a great read. And there's a graphic novel version too, which I've picked up but have not read yet. But I would definitely recommend the original Lost on a Mountain in Maine. Okay, number 6, Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown and illustrated by Clement Hurd. This question is, do you read at bedtime? Yes, when I stick to that. Do you read to someone else at bedtime? Yes, my son. Did anyone ever read to you at bedtime? Yes, absolutely. My mom read probably every night. And I've always read at bedtime, and it clicked the other day when I was answering a question about like what you spent your time doing as a kid, and I was always outside all day playing Foursquare with the neighborhood kids, different versions of tag, climbing the trees. We grew up just walk from the beach, so I'd always be at our little beach. And I loved reading too. So naturally, once you're outside all day, you come home, and that's when I would read. So I've always loved reading at night. I've never really enjoyed or felt connected to reading during the day. Sometimes if it's a rainy day or like right before a nap, but I always have been a nighttime reader. And I think that's why, because I spent all day outside and then would come home and read at night. So it's just what feels most natural to me. So I do read at bedtime. That's what I enjoy the most. I just find I get distracted from it. So usually my goal is the hour, at least an hour before bed. And usually once I start, I end up reading longer than that. Okay. Number 7, Guess How Much I Love You. I think we have all of these books. That's crazy. Oh no, we don't have Alexander. But I think we've read it together. If not, I'll have to get that from the library next. Okay, Guess How Much I Love You by Sam McBratney and illustrated by Anita Jerem. Who had the biggest influence on you as a reader? I mean, definitely my mom. She always supported my reading. She read to me at night, which is huge to foster that reading. And you know, that's going to be a huge thing. And unfortunately, being read to at night is not something we necessarily remember. So that was definitely probably a huge part in fostering my reading. And I saw her read, right? So that's a huge help too. And then the other person who really comes to mind is the librarian in our YA room at the library that I grew up going to, because that was the coolest room. There was a loft where you could hang out with. She had like this red hair that was just flowing, and she just seemed like this magical being. I would go down, it was downstairs in the library, so after school we'd go down into the library, browse down into the YA juvenile room. I don't think it was called a YA room, but like the juvenile fiction room. We'd go down in there, I wish I remembered her name. I don't, but it was something about that room. It was something about her that really like fostered the magic of reading, and especially in those formative years of middle school where everything is awkward and weird and uncomfortable and you're just trying to figure out life, like being able to turn to books in that room specifically was very helpful for me at that age, I think. So she has stuck with me and that room has stuck with me until now. And then our final book is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, which I actually do not enjoy. It is a very sad book. It never makes me happy, even though it has powerful messages. I just don't like this book. I don't like it. The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. The question is, which book or set of books would you give to an emerging reader, or which book have you given as a gift more than once? I don't think I've ever given the same book twice, and I think for an emerging reader, rather than give them a book, I would take them to the bookstore, because for me it was the magic of the possibilities. It was having the options, browsing the shelves, finding something that captured you, and having the freedom of choice. So I think that I would, if they didn't have one, get them a library card if there's access to a library, and or bring them to a bookstore so they could browse and pick something out for their own, because that was part of the enjoyment for me, was choosing the books and seeing how they turned out as well. So I think that answers the question. What would you give to them? I wouldn't pick a specific book. And which book would have you given more than once? I think at baby showers I usually give maybe the same book, but it's not necessary to an emerging reader. So take that as what you will. Who do I tag? I'm also going to tag a couple of people who I know have little ones at home, because I think there is something fun about thinking about this tag if you are currently reading picture books as well. So I'm going to tag the Bandana Book Mom. I think that's your channel name. Yes, Bandana Book Mom, I'm going to tag you. I'm so curious what your answers will be. And also Era Moose, who already had a little one and just had a new little one recently. I'm going to tag you, Moose. I'd love to see what your answers are too. And anybody else who would like to do this tag, consider yourself tagged, okay? Thank you so much for hanging out for another video. I appreciate each and every one of you, and hopefully I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye, guys.